Ma'am.
Ma'am.
Didn't I tell you?
Ma'am, do not approach him.
I told him that baby was his. I gotta protect her, and it just hurt for me to look at her every day knowing somebody denying her.
He gets married to the love of his life, only to find out she is also getting intimate with another man who he knows nothing about. And that's not the craziest part of the story. I hope you guys are in for another bumpy ride of baby daddy drama, because your minds are about to be blown.
Mr. Smith, you have brought your estranged wife to court to prove that you are the biological father of her 4-year-old daughter, Christina Cookie Smith. You signed the birth certificate and have been daddy since she was born, and claim you know you are her father. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Mr. and Mrs. Smith started their love sequel back when they were in middle school. They were the pretty sweethearts back in the day, with all that Disney love. But hold up, things are about to take an unexpected turn, people.
We actually met in middle school. We went out through, like, I want to say 7th, 8th grade, and then we reconnected after high school.
All right, and you dated, fell in love?
Right, we actually got married.
Okay.
We actually ended up getting new phones around that time.
Okay.
So it's just like the other phones were kind of lingering around. So I'm just casually just going through them. And I saw text messages, some photos between my wife and some other cat.
He goes through her phone one of those cozy nights and finds out his wife has been sexting another guy, sending him the most inappropriate pictures. Damn! When she's asked, she doesn't deny it at all. That's gonna leave a mark on Mr. Smith's heart, if you ask me. Of course, when he found out, he definitely wasn't going to stick around.
What did you see? What was the exchange?
I miss you. When you miss a person, apparently you've seen them before. Nude photos.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And
nude photos of your wife or of the man?
Excuse me, Your Honor.
little bit
I've
of
never
both.
seen any of these alleged text messages that he's talking about.
Well, did you send them? I mean, even if you haven't seen them, did you send them?
Now things spiral out of proportion and Mrs. Smith finds out she's pregnant. Who does she call? She calls Mr. Smith, hoping they could work out their marriage and move on. Does that work? Well, your guess is as good as mine.
Miss Smith, you find out you're pregnant.
Yes, ma'am. When I found out I was pregnant, we were very excited. I told Christian we weren't together, and I thought that this could be a chance for us to reconnect and make our marriage work. And he agreed, and shortly after we got back together.
Things become all romantic again for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They're having the time of their lives and in a happy place once again. But does that last? Hell no! Trust me when I tell you, things take a turn for the worst.
I look up their Instagram. So I'm scrolling, and I see somebody holding my daughter.
Whoa.
With a
What?
with a cheese, one of these, with a cheese on their face, like it's all happy and everything.
So does it have a caption?
It did have a caption, but I not for word verbatim, but it was something in the line of him claiming her, though. It was that.
Now Mrs. Smith drops a bomb that blows the minds of everyone in the courtroom. She says she got intimate with another guy and told the guy she wasn't married. Wait, what? I can't believe my ears right now.
Around the time, I was very vulnerable, and he was the only one showing me any type of attention or any love, which I needed, because I felt lonely around the time because my husband left me alone. So,
You had sex with him.
yes, ma'am.
Did you use protection?
No, ma'am.
Did you tell him you were married?
No, I did not.
This could only be termed the worst day of Mr. Smith's life. First of all, he finds out that his wife, whom he loves more than anyone in the world, had an affair with someone else. Then another bombshell hits the ground and he finds out he might not be that father to his little girl. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes, honestly.
So if he has a caption saying, "This is my child," you had told this other man that the child was his?
Yes.
Yeah, before me, right? Before me, like I don't mean anything. Just this random person gets the best information in the world, and you feel like you can't tell me the one thing that I actually need to hear for my sanity.
As if things couldn't get any worse, the guy who Mrs. Smith was having an affair with walked into the court, and trust me, he had quite a lot to say. He also thinks the little girl is his child too. That's just sad.
When you met her, did Miss Smith say to you, "This is your child"?
I ain't gonna lie, when I seen her, she looks just like my dad. She looks just like us, so, I never really doubted it, you understand what I'm saying? I always thought that, this is my child.
Well, the moment we've all been waiting for is here, and the truth is is about to be revealed, people. It's been one tricky ride here, but all that suspense is about to be over. I hope you guys are ready because I am.
It has been determined by this court. The biological father is Mr. Prater. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I know that was not the news you wanted.
That's tough,
Oh, I know.
but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
So, Mr. Ahmad, our dear plaintiff, thought he hit the parenting jackpot, only to be crushed under a shocking revelation. But now he was here ready and charged to get this baby girl back. Buckle up, it's a wild ride.
Mr. Ahmad, you say you were overjoyed to be a father after the birth of your first child, 22-month-old Nevaeh. However, you claim that you were crushed when the defendant later told you another man could be her dad. You are here today to prove you are Nevaeh's father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the baby daddy was over the moon with the baby news. And by the looks of it, the poor guy had been waiting a long time for this to happen. So the doubts and reservations surrounding the whole situation were killing him.
To be my first child, so I was overjoyed. She was high risk, so she couldn't work. So what I did, I tried to do as best as a man that I could do.
And you all were in what kind of relationship? Committed, or were you just casual friends, or what?
Boyfriend and girlfriend.
Boyfriend and girlfriend. Okay. And so you found out she was pregnant and you were excited because this was your very first child.
Yes.
Whether Mr. Ahmad was happy or not, Ms. Day, on the other hand, had a ton of commitment issues. She was calling it a friendship, but did not feel the love in whatever these guys shared. Ouch! It's like a romantic comedy, minus the romance and the comedy.
I told him the truth from the beginning, that she might not be his. And he said he wanted to be her father and he would be there for us.
Talk to me about the relationship from your point of view.
It was more of a friendship for me. I loved Mr. Ahmad, but I wasn't in love with him. It was just, he was there for me and I needed somebody to be there for me.
Ahmad's heart is swelling with joy over the prospect of being a dad, but Ms. Day, she's whispering doubts in his ear, questioning his paternity skills. It's a heartbreak in the making, and someone's gonna need a pop culture-sized tissue for this emotional roller coaster.
What happens with the relationship at that point? You all move in together after that?
We never lived together.
She was at my residence every day.
That's not true. We didn't even get along that much. I was not at his house every day. We argued so much, I never lived with him. Like, he would, when I spent the night, some nights he would kick me out at 2 in the morning.
Hold the phone now, because it appears the plaintiff was not a goody two-shoes either. Oh yeah, Ms. Day was spilling some real tea over his behavior with her, though the baby daddy was having none of it. Cue the dramatic music, please.
You're saying you did not hear her say there was another possible father?
I've never known another man. She's been.
That's not true.
I went to work.
When I
went to
told
work,
him,
and I
he was
came home.
intoxicated and he kicked me out the same night that I told him.
I disagree with that because now I feel like you're trying to make me feel some kind of way because if I was such a good friend, a friend doesn't do that to a friend.
Now, while Mr. Ahmad was living in a she might be mine nightmare, he was still involved in the whole journey. However, Mommy did not want him to sign the birth certificate. Any guesses what he did?
The entire time she was pregnant, I cut the umbilical cord, I signed the birth certificate. After the baby was born, we left the hospital together. Matter of fact, her mother picked me up to go have when the baby was being delivered.
Moving on, the judge dug deeper into hospital protocol and uncovered some very interesting information. According to that policy, the father can only sign if the mother provides the necessary information. Fasten your seatbelts. We're diving into birth certificate chaos.
What information did you put on the card?
I put my name and her name.
But you did not put his name?
No, I did not.
At all?
No, I did not. But I gave my baby his name because he was there. The other person was not there.
So you gave the child his last name?
Yes.
It appears Mommy took a U-turn when the baby girl stopped resembling the plaintiff, though she claimed to have been truthful from the start. Her social media, on the other hand, told an entirely different story.
This other man is Nevaeh's biological father?
Yes.
Why do you believe that?
Because she looks like his kid. She looks like him. She don't look like Mr. Ahmad at all anymore.
And so, do you admit that you led Mr. Ahmad to believe that he was her biological father?
No.
Enter the second baby daddy, aka Mr. Flowers, who gave his 2 cents on the whole situation. Now he claimed to just be here for the results. However, mommy claimed to have a much deeper connection with the guy, and Mr. Ahmad did not like that testimony.
Everything been cool all the way up to this baby situation occurred. When it occurred, she told me to be a 50-50 chance. I left the situation right there and went on about my way.
But she says you take care of Nevaeh now.
Yeah, she be with me at work and everything.
The moment of truth was finally here, but the air was thick with uncertainty. Mr. Ahmad's emotions were juggling between love for the baby and the fear of a plot twist. Time to see what the future holds for them.
It has been determined by this court. The biological father is Mr. Flowers. Mr. Flowers, you are the father.
Yeah, that's mine. That's my baby.
But listen, you are the biological father, but I need you all to understand in this room that Mr. Ahmad is still the legal father.
Mr. Cleveland wasn't ready to listen to whatever his wife had to say. He'd been having so much doubt in his head about who the real father of his kid was. Trust me, this tale of betrayal and dishonesty will leave you speechless. Grab your popcorn and enjoy the show.
Mr. Cleveland, you admit that your wife was unfaithful and you have good reason to doubt Hunter is yours. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Additionally, you have petitioned the court for a lie detector test for your wife to determine the extent of her infidelities.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Cleveland, what is the state of your marriage right now?
Our marriage is currently on the rocks.
Their marriage wasn't a bed of roses, trust me. It had gone through all the baggage of zero trust, disloyalty, and even an affair with the husband's friend. You could even say there was almost no saving the marriage at this point.
Differently than he does his daughter, and it bothers me inside.
I try not to treat him any differently. Try to treat him like he's mine.
You said you try to, Mr.
Yes,
Cleveland.
ma'am. I mean, it's a little hard sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, Your Honor. I mean, there's that thought there that he is not mine, and that makes a person really emotionally upset. There are times that I'm holding him and I look at him and, you know, I don't see me in him and I have to set him down and walk away.
This couple's marriage was hanging by a thread, and Mr. Cleveland was willing to let it all end if he found out he wasn't the father. Now, how did they get to where they are right now? I bet you want to know. Well, it started with Mrs. Cleveland having funny texts on her phone from someone who wasn't Mr. Cleveland. Ow!
Okay, so the text and everything behind my back isn't cheating. I consider that cheating.
What are the texts behind your back?
Like sexy messages, like I miss you, I love you, you're so handsome.
And you're right about that. You're right about that.
Wait, who are you sending those texts to? Your husband, I hope.
No, because my husband didn't treat me like a husband.
You could see it all over Mr. Cleveland's face that he'd been dealing with a lot of doubt. His mind was clouded with so much suspicion as he claimed she was a serial cheater. But did Mrs. Cleveland deny it? Of course she did.
I didn't cheat on you.
Who are you texting?
He was an old friend of mine from school.
But isn't that cheating of some form? Isn't that
it
at
is.
least
It is,
emotional
Donna.
cheating?
I was ready to call it quits. I was ready to wash my hands with the whole situation. I was ready for a divorce. He finds out that I kissed this guy and he wants to be husband of the world, you know?
The courtroom was turning into a meltdown, with both Mr. and Mrs. Cleveland wanting to rip out their throats. Mrs. Cleveland gets pregnant and she tells her husband their craziest things. A month after she finds out, she says the baby might not be his and it might be for his friend. What? I would definitely lose my mind.
That is not true. I told him the first month I was pregnant that it could be him or his friend.
Now.
Wait, what? Hold on, don't just gloss over that. You told him a month. What did you say?
I was a month pregnant and I told him it could be his child, but it could also be his friend's because me and his friend had a sexual relationship.
No one could understand how she ended up sleeping with her husband's friend. Of course, she tried to defend herself by saying her husband wasn't treating her right and she felt he didn't love her anymore. But who was she? Kidding, right? The deed had already been done and there was no taking it back.
Okay, so let me just ask you the obvious question. How do you end up sleeping with his friend?
His friend was giving me a different lifestyle. He was cleaning my lifestyle up. I was involved in church every Sunday. I wasn't out running the streets like I was with my husband. At the time, I was doing something with myself.
I'm sure the question that's popping in your head is if they got back after all. Mrs. Cleveland did. Well, I'm sorry, but somehow they managed to work things out. But that guilt, it went nowhere. It was sitting pretty in Mr. Cleveland's head like a crown on a king.
He married me a month before my son was born.
Well, so at that point, I mean, you all look happy.
We were.
We were, Your Honor, we really.
And when you see that picture, Miss Cleveland, it makes you feel.
It hurts me inside because that's not at all how we are anymore.
It's not. It hurts me too, Your Honor. So we're looking for, I don't know, we need to get some answers.
Well, the suspense is finally over, and the hassle of who the dad of their child is about to be revealed. It's been a bumpy and funny ride with Mr. and Mrs. Cleveland. All eyes are on the judge as she unleashes the truth.
Mr. Cleveland,
Yes, sir.
you are not father.
I really thought so. I mean, I see it. I mean, I strongly looked at a lot of pictures and made myself want to believe that he was mine, but I just knew he wasn't.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Looking at this couple, you could tell they just weren't meant for each other. Mrs. Johnson dragged Mr. Johnson to court on the matter of him not being a good dad. Was Mr. Johnson having any of it? Hell no! Let's get this parenting drama on the road, shall we?
Mr. Johnson, you admit that your marriage is at its breaking point, but you argue that it's because your wife undermines your authority and allows her 12-year-old son to disrespect you.
Yes, Your Honor.
You claim you were on the street since you were 14 years old and you fear your stepson is on the same track.
Absolutely.
Mr. and Mrs. Johnson have been at each other's throats for quite some time now. Having been married for up to 7 years, their marriage has crash-landed from a state of bad to worse. And the shocking thing here, it's all because of their 12-year-old kid. Trust me, it's crazy.
He wasn't upset that I didn't come. He was upset that his cousins didn't come from Florida. It had nothing to do with me. His cousins in Florida that he doesn't see a lot.
Now,
that's where it was at.
Give me more specific stories of how you feel he treats children differently.
Mrs. Johnson went on and on about how Mr. Johnson wasn't threatening both of their kids. In her words, he had a favorite one. You can bet Mr. Johnson wasn't just going to let her run her mouth. He comes in like a blazing inferno, telling her she's to be blamed. It's like a war zone in the courtroom.
My son, we took like a safari ride, and he said, oh, well, me and Ethan will ride on this one, and you and Elijah can ride on that. And it just hurts my son's feelings because he never shows that extra step to where...
She doesn't enforce me as a father figure.
As they kept trolling each other in the courtroom like it was another WWE wrestling match, mind-blowing revelations started to pop out. Believe me, these revelations will leave your jaws dropping from your mouth.
You see
Why not respect
noticeable
me for it?
differences on a day-to-day basis as to how he treats both boys.
Yes, I do. He doesn't take an extra step in, like, as far as going to the PTA meetings or...
Did I? In the beginning?
Yeah, in the beginning, but things have changed. And
lot has changed.
You can't expect different results when you're not willing to
He
make a change.
undermines me at home.
He's
What is he
12,
going to do
you're
there?
33.
Exactly. Discipline your son.
After Mrs. Johnson was done throwing shades at her husband in the courtroom, it was Mr. Johnson's turn to spill the beans. And my God, did he have a lot to say about Mrs. Johnson and their 12-year-old boy. It was like a love series that was unending.
Elijah's disrespectful to me, to her,
but he's disrespectful.
to everyone.
It's
To
because
everyone.
me and
When you
Mr.
say he's
Johnson have
disrespectful,
disrespectful to
first
everyone.
give me
He
some
takes-
specifics. What do you mean?
She told him, we got a new place together. I started to remodel the entire place. She told him specifically to clean up after himself. He is 12 years old. I cleaned the entire house.
The rants go on, and Mr. Johnson keeps pouring out his mind like a wounded lion. Does it end there? Of course not. Mrs. Johnson, filled with rage, jumps into the ring again and starts throwing shots at her husband. She even calls him a kid. These two can't wait to rip each other apart in the courtroom.
He's the one acting like he's 12 too.
I'm trying to teach him to be a man. I'm trying to teach this boy to be a man.
How specifically are you trying to teach him to be a man?
If he's 12 years old, can he pick up after himself? Can he listen to his mom? Can he respect his
So
elders?
learning how to do chores, clean up after himself.
Respect.
Yeah, but you
Do you
gotta
think
give
he respects
respect.
his
I
mother?
did give respect for many, many years.
Mrs. Johnson's dad walks up to the stage and drops bombs on bombs, countering every single word Mr. Johnson said. It was almost like her dad was her husband's biggest OPP. Man just stood there throwing heavy blows at Mr. Johnson. It was a tug of war and nobody wanted to be beaten.
As Mr. Johnson has put it to him and all people.
Everybody.
I see Elijah being left out on a lot of things.
Left
There's
out of
no
what?
father, son. The ice cream. You ask Ethan to pick up your room. It's like, would you pick up your room? What's wrong with you? Why don't?
So why aren't we here for the way you talk to Ethan?
You know, talk to him.
Knowing Mr. Johnson, you could bet he was ready for his comeback. As soon as Mrs. Johnson's dad was done talking, boom! He came with his comebacks that hit like bullets shot by a firing squad.
You're his grandfather.
Doesn't that go for both kids, though? Wouldn't that go for both children, not just Elijah? Like what Ethan, my son, he does the same thing. He babies Elijah. Oh, it'll be okay.
shouldn't yell at Ethan
oh, it'll
either
be
like
okay.
that.
You yell at him. Your daughter will admit
So
it.
now you're saying that Mr. Amolch yells at...
He's way more aggressive with Ethan than he is with Elijah. With Elijah, it's okay.
The moment of truth was finally here, but the air was thick with uncertainty as to whether their marriage was going to be saved or shattered for good. Time to see what the future holds for them. I hope you guys are ready.
I'm going to take a risk and just ask, now that we've consented to the anger management and the parenting courses, is it safe to say that we're going to work on this marriage?
Yes.
Wonderful. So we won't be needing this, right?
Right. From this point, we're gonna co-parent and talk amongst each other on how to discipline rather than lashing out at each other.
Entangled in the romance of being with an older man, Ms. Moyette wasn't only left with having to take care of her little baby girl, she was also left with a more than shattered heart. Will she get over the heartbreak? Let's find out.
Ms. Moyette, you're here in court today to prove that Mr. Lester, a man who is 20 years older than you, is the father of your 3-month-old daughter, Nyla Moyette. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
You claim Mr. Lester has done nothing for your daughter, therefore you're suing for half of child-rearing expenses.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Lester wasn't going to give in to any thought that he could be the father of Ms. Moyette's child. For Ms. Moyette, she thought she was with a man who loved and cared for her, but got Mr. Lester. It was all fun and games till the bills came due.
Well, Your Honor, Mr. Lester has hardly been involved in Nyla's life. Besides the fact of 3 cases of diapers, a onesie that he bought for her, which was a boy outfit. Other than that, me and my mother have been providing for her food, milk, and everything and things like that. I also have evidence here showing you that I have been buying, providing.
Things were never all lovey-dovey between Mr. Lester and Ms. Moyette. When she found out she was pregnant, she told Mr. Lester. But was he excited about the baby? Hell no! It was like the baby was gonna spoil all the fun he was having.
When you told him about the pregnancy, what was his reaction, Ms. Moyette?
He was not happy. I actually planned this pregnancy. I went over his house the day I was ovulating, okay? And I let him know, babe, I'm ovulating. I want to have a baby. We did nothing.
That is not true.
Yeah, we did nothing to prevent Nyla.
Mr. Lester wasn't going to allow her to state the obvious, so he jumped in and called her a big fat liar, stating that all she said was all in her head and they hadn't been intimate in a really long while. Well, I sure saw that coming. He denied it all. But the revelations from Ms. Moyette will leave you in so much shock.
Your Honor, that is so not true.
Your Honor, yes it is.
Not only do we not have a sexual relationship now, we haven't since she told me she was pregnant.
Your Honor, that's a lie. And now it's not, Your Honor, we've had sex since I've had my daughter 5 times. I've counted.
That's not true.
Well, she's only 3 months old.
Exactly.
Mr. Lester wasn't being nice to Ms. Moyette at all in the courtroom. He kept emphasizing the fact that he didn't want a relationship with Ms. Moyette. He said he just wanted to have a good time, but Ms. Moyette was insistent on having a baby for him. Now, who's telling the truth? I'm pretty confused at this point.
You weren't interested in having a child?
No, I wasn't, Your Honor. I only was interested in the friendship. She became more obsessed. Every time she expressed how much she cared for me and how much she wanted to be in a relationship, I expressed how much I didn't want. And I never misled Miss Moyette.
It was war in that courtroom. The things that were coming out of both Mr. Lester and Ms. Moyette's mouths were just very unbelievable. Even Judge Lauren was very confused as she couldn't add up what they were saying.
We were not together every day. I wasn't mentally ready for a committed relationship, but I did.
But Mr. Lester, whether you were ready or not has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not you are Nyla's biological father. You understand that?
Mr. Lester, who never wanted to have a kid with Ms. Moyette, stated that he had doubts that the baby was his. Was he being delusional? I mean, he was basically sleeping with Ms. Moyette without using protection. Trust me, people, these two are nuts.
When I first met Miss Moyette, she told me her name was Mia.
Okay.
Come to find out her name was Iris. I left her name in my contents as Mia because she was always missing in action. That's what MIA stand for.
Well, it's finally time to unveil the truth after so many lies and deceptions. The day of reckoning is finally here, with everyone itching to know the truth. Are you ready to find out? I bet you are. So take a deep breath because here it comes.
Mr. Lester, you are Nyla's father.
Yes! Yes!
Ma'am.
Didn't I tell you?
Ma'am.
Didn't I tell you?
You need to be respectful.
Didn't I tell you?
I understand you're upset. Use proper language. Do not approach him.
Didn't I tell you? Mom, I told him that baby was